Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. Today, I have with me Lillian, who we're going to be talking about mental health, growing up in an Asian culture. And she has quite a background in the realm of mindset coaching and transformation. So let me read her bio, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this conversation goes. First, Lillian, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, and you have both are there two last names, or is it a middle name and a last name?
It's a middle name and a last name.
Okay, and do you usually go by all three?
Yes, I do.
All right. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so my name is Lillian Victoria. I am one of the founders for Vitality, and we help people go through their personal transformational experience.
Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, she has a transformative mission that reflects her extraordinary journey. So, with deep ties to Taiwan as a Chinese American, she brings a unique bicultural perspective and a global mindset to her work. While working as an entertainment executive, Lillian aimed to connect her cultural heritage with the US Chinese film industry, using media to search for her father. Facing life's challenges, she turned to Bob Proctor for guidance, and her journey through entertainment and life coaching has now come full circle, empowering her to use the power of storytelling for healing, positive impact, and motivational narratives. And what's really interesting is, Lillian and I, we shared the same coach. So we both coached years ago with Kelly Roach, and we met at an in-person event. And I think we'd originally planned this podcast interview maybe 6 months ago, and something happened. We had to reschedule. And ironically, now here we are on the day to actually record this podcast interview, and you've completely transformed your business. You're doing something very different.
Yes.
So I have no idea what we're going to talk about, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. So first, for the last, say, 3 to 5 years, what did your days, your weeks, your months look like in regard to motherhood and business and where you thought your life was going to go?
Yeah, actually, for the past 3 to 5 years, I really was working on myself because my whole life I feel like I was in a rat race. I worked in entertainment with a very simple goal at the time, which is to use media to find my dad. It was such a naive way of thinking. Mind you, when I went to film school, the world was very different. YouTube was not what it is today. Internet is not what it is today. The idea was to put my name on a movie and my dad will find me, right? Or I will find him somehow. So living in that kind of cycle, always chasing and always chasing, when my whole personal life collapsed on me, that's when I realized that I didn't even really know who I was. So I hit my rock bottom. I had my mental health situations where I fell into deep depression. I checked myself into the outpatient program. I was put on all kinds of meds, antidepressant, Xanax, Prozac, Lexapro, just to get by. And then ultimately, there was a point, my oldest son at the time was only 3 years old. And ultimately, there was a point I had to be like, am I going to live or am I going to die? And I looked at him and I realized that I'm going to live because he's going to have a mom. And that's when I decided to get back up. And that's where I was looking for help. Right? I was looking for any kind of help to get me out of the hole because I realized everything that was working for me was not working for me. I
Mm-hmm.
realized I didn't have a vision of myself. I realized I didn't have an identity, right? So that's why when people ask me what the past 3 to 5 years, I did a huge career change from entertainment to go into personal development, right? But I always say the biggest win from all that experience is I developed me. I surrounded myself with a whole new set of people, with a whole new set of visionaries like you. I got to meet people like you,
Mm-hmm.
right? A different outlook in life, a different mindset um, on how to navigate the world. And ultimately, what it is I also create a whole new belief system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm hearing is started in the entertainment and film industry and then wanted to find your father, and you thought that if I could be on a film that my dad will see me and find me. And then there was this realization of I'm actually very empty and sad and I don't know who I am. So you found Bob Proctor and started that personal development journey and then moved into uh, being a PGI consultant and coaching others. And now you're going full circle back to film and entertainment. And
Yeah.
along the journey, there was admitting yourself into an outpatient clinic going, I'm really not stable and I'm going to stay alive because I have a child. But I'm sure there's a lot more to the story than that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you had a 3-year-old at that time, but now your children are much older. So now what are the ages of your kids now?
Now I have 3 kids. I have one that is mine. I have one that is my partner's son, so my stepson. And then I have a 10-month-old. Talk
Okay.
about growing. When
Yeah.
I went through my divorce and I lost my house and the business and who I was, my whole life identity at the time, it was so hard for me to see the light at the end of the tunnel because in my culture, in the Asian culture, it's get married before 30 after you're a leftover woman. And this is a real thing. You guys could go onto YouTube and Google about this, right? So that's why I rushed into marriage when I was in harmony with it. So coming out at the time, I was like 35, 36, 35. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have a career. This is the mindset
Mm,
at the time. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. I don't have money, right? And I'm old. Like, and all I wanted when as a little girl was I wanted a family because I never had my dad. I didn't know where he was at. That's why I was looking for answers in the past. But then
mhm,
the ship came when I started to hold on to the vision of the life that I love. And I held on to that. And that's where everything starts to come in. Looking back, what it was universe, God, whatever you believe, had to rip out things that are not in harmony with me. He took it out, yank it out to create space and room for the life that I want. Right. So fast
mhm,
forward now, I have like I like to call it beautiful modern family, blended family, with 2 kids. So I grew my family, which is beautiful, and I always wanted that. And yeah, life is just really good. I guess when I look at my personal life, everything that I wanted, it happened. And that was a
mhm,
huge shift for me to be able to shift that belief. Because for the longest time, when the reason why I was stuck in my little black hole, well, it was hard for me to say that. To see that. There was a stigma, right? Culturally speaking.
mhm, mhm. And so then there was also, as I'm hearing, there was a divorce in the midst of that too. So there's this expectation of my role as a Chinese American woman with ties to Taiwanese culture was get married early and your job is to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And so you followed that dream. And how old were you when you got married?
I was like 29, 30. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the marriage didn't last. Was that mutual? Was it you instigating the divorce? Was it him? What happened there?
Oh my gosh. You want to get deep. No, I love it. Um, going back a little bit, I used to say I lived a resume life. Like, even though I am Taiwanese American, Chinese American here, I still live that resume life, as in, like, okay, I had a good career. He had a good career. We got married at the right age. We have a baby. We have a house. right? Like that kind of all American dream, and it completely crashed. The marriage uh ended. I want to be very careful with my words because he's still the father of my child, and I very much value that and respect that. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say we worked really hard on the marriage. We went to marriage counseling, and one thing that I've learned is there is at one point, there is boundaries that is our responsibility to set, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love what Oprah said. When people are in abusive relationships, you can't blame the other person. The only person that's responsible for that is you,
Hmm.
right? It's the person. So, and I'm not saying, him or I. I'm trying to be very thoughtful with my words. I would just say it was not in harmony. We tried everything that we can to make it work. And it just really came to the point where we both agreed that the best way for us to go about is to actually go separate ways. And it's
Yeah, yeah,
actually better
yeah,
for our son.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so then when the depth of depression showed up for you and you admitted yourself into an outpatient place,
Yeah.
in I'm getting a better idea of the timeline and how because that was when your older child was 3. How long ago was that and where in this trajectory was it when you were still married? Was it after the divorce? Like
It was
where?
during, towards the end of the marriage and the divorce, everything
Okay.
was
Okay.
happening. And the biggest thing that I have learned too, and this ties into my professional world, is when I was going through all of that marriage troubles, I didn't talk to anyone about it besides my
Uh-huh.
therapist at the time. I was going to my therapy myself. We were going to marriage therapy. Professionally, no one knows. And I've learned it is okay to be vulnerable because
Hmm.
that's when I started to literally mentally and physically collapse.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically. Because I as a person, a human, when we're going through our own life challenges, and we all have a story,
Hmm.
right? Making sure that you have that support, knowing that the work environment, the people that you work, they're also human too. I kept it so separate. And what happened was I wasn't able to perform at work because I could barely keep myself alive,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so all that when the business didn't work out, when the marriage didn't work out, and that's when I personally collapsed. And my goal was to just get through one day. My
Yeah.
goal was to just be able to breathe and not have panic attacks. And
Hmm.
that's when I admitted into the outpatient because I knew that I needed help. I was at such a dark space in my life at
Hmm. And how much of that experience of collapse do you relate to being a woman, being the age you were, being from Taiwanese American or Chinese American heritage? Like how much of that, um, I guess where do you feel like the strongest ties? Like if I think about a sticky web, the web that kind of holds us to our childhood, holds us to our
yeah,
identity.
yeah.
Um,
I think everything because I think the biggest thing that was holding back, there's two words that come into mind. One is expectation, living to other
mhm,
people's expectation, but really it was my mind that was doing the trick.
mhm,
And then two, criticism because I was born in America, but I was raised in Taiwan. And
mhm,
the culture in Asia and the school system at the time, I know it's changed a lot now. Um, it's whatever the teacher says. Everything is it's grade driven, right? Asia has a very high suicide rate when they don't get good grades, and it's still happening today. I mean, like a
mhm.
kid would jump off the balcony if they got a B and not an A. These are stories that happen in the world.
Wow.
My fifth grade teacher didn't really like me because I was this kind of American kid in school, right? So he told me, and I believed him at the time, at fifth grade, he said my best job was to be a janitor. So so all of that created sort of my self-confidence, very deep that I didn't work with, right? I didn't know how to deal with it. Right. This is where that mental health and bundled up with, childhood sexual abuse. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to talk about it because, again, in
Mm,
Asia, you don't talk about it. You just
right.
don't. I was raised, one of the biggest fear that I had to overcome and own up, and which is what brought me into depression, was being a single mom. Because my mom was a single mom raising two kids. She was
Hmm.
emotionally and physically unavailable, literally unavailable. She was trying to make ends meet every single day. Even when we came back to America, we were rejected because me and my brother are American citizens. We're not Taiwanese citizens. And in the law of Taiwan, your father has to be Taiwanese to even have that sort of amendment, right?
Hmm.
The law has changed since then again, from my understanding. So it was like I'm neither here or neither there. And when we came back, we were living on government support. So all of that was very triggering. And this is
Hmm.
when I realized that my mind was completely filled with the memory of the past, the fear, the trauma. And then the biggest fear of trauma is to look at my son and feel like I'm going to have him go through the same experience that I did. The
Mm.
realization came was, what is it that I want? And I started to look for my own identity. So therapy was very great to help me have the awareness why I act a certain way, I think a certain way, right? And then the coaching came into my life to help me bring the light into the darkness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And and so have you, regarding this quest for your father and going into film, and then the ways in which that kind of painted your experience of childhood, and is he Taiwanese? Did you even know where he was from, or have you ever met him now? Did you find him? Did he find you?
He's Cantonese. He's not
Okay.
Taiwanese. And
Okay.
we've heard that he was in China because his new wife is from Shanghai. I have not found him. I did find him on ancestry.com. And then my friends are, obviously now as grown-ups, my friends are detectives and they look into their supercomputer. Um, but I've reached out, I wrote letters, there's phone calls I call, I have not reached him. And I'm also at this place in life right now. This is very powerful. And this is something I actually learned from Bob Proctor.
Hmm.
It was like a awakened reality, I guess. I feel like my childhood was driven to find him because I wanted to know why he abandoned me. Because our relationship was very interesting. As a little girl, I never saw. This is one thing my parents, I guess, they did good. They never fought in front of me. I was daddy's little girl, and one day he just gone out of my life. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what happened. It was very abrupt, right? So I wanted to know why. And what I have learned is I did everything that I can. I exhausted my resources. I've even found his brother's wife email. I'm contacting her to be like, can you put me in touch with my dad? And she's not helping. So there's probably a bigger reason. I don't know why. But the piece that I came, and this is where Bob's teaching come into play, don't focus so much on the past. The past is already gone. If I'm looking for him, develop a relationship with the future. And the truth is, because I have exhausted everything, right? I just came to that piece. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen because I have children. I will never, ever abandon them or leave them. I don't know what happened. And I'm just going to assume, reaching out to some of the family members, writing him out, he probably seen it, saw it somehow, but decided not to come back. So I'm at this place of peace because I asked myself, do I want a relationship with him? Probably not. I do want to know what happened, but is that going to help me? I don't know, right? It's
Hmm.
probably a healing experience. So this is where my whole life self discovery, how I'm taking my identity back, because in the past, I feel like something was wrong with me.
Hmm.
Now, as a grown up, and this is the shift. When I was in therapy, I was really focused on the inner child. And I'm not saying that's not important, but I realized I spent so much time on the inner child and the little girl in me. My energy and focus shifted into focusing on the woman that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
right? And taking up that ownership and knowing whatever decision happens, it's on him. It's not on me.
Yeah.
And whatever the action he's done doesn't define who I am. If anything, it just makes me stronger because I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the place of taking my power back right now from everything. I also learned in therapy. I was very timid, very low, very self-conscious, low self-esteem. Because when I had went through my sexual abuse experience when I was so young, I didn't even know what was going on. My voice was taken away because I didn't have to say
Mm-hmm.
with what's going on. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know. But with all of the awareness, I'm taking all of that back. If I don't deal with it, it's always going to sit there. It's going to rot in there. And I felt it and I was there. The
Mm.
way to do it is bring it light. The way to do it is to show the world what I could do, right? And then
Yeah.
show my kids. Most importantly, it's for my kids, right? Because
First of all, I just want to really honor and acknowledge your vulnerability, to share all the nuances and kind of allow me to pull the veils back a little bit. I imagine those that are listening probably feel like they're not alone. They are leaning in and feeling like they're honoring your journey and feeling your heart. And, there's also, I think what I heard you say is when the depression was at its depths and there was even contemplation of taking your own life, the thing that kept you going was the fact that at that point you had a 3-year-old child. And this feeling of, I know what it's like to feel abandoned by a parent, and I will ensure that my child never has that feeling. Now, we can't control how they feel, but I will not take my life and repeat this pattern of abandoning my child or potentially leaving my child abandoned. Does that ring true for you?
you nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest shift. I remember the biggest shift was me really claiming inside, I am not my mom. Yeah.
I'm not my mom. Ah,
Yeah.
tell me more about that.
Yeah. Because I saw her struggle. I saw her not being there, you know? And if you really look into it, it's because of her childhood, right? And I just saw her. There's one moment that I think it's one of those moments that stayed with me for my whole life. We had just came back to the States from Taiwan. I was in high school, sophomore, and we were living in this motel room. I have to give her so much credit. We came here, no money. She was just like, we're gonna stay in this motel until we figure it out. And I remember she was, oh my gosh, sorry, my heart is like about to ache when I think about this. She was sitting in the corner of the room and she was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't have any money. I never talked about this. And, as a kid, you just remember that. I remember the struggle. I remember her just not doing the best that she can and just not being there for, not physically not able to be there for me and my brother. I had my experiences as a child, and I know my brother has too. That's why he went through his depression, right? So, and you asked me about marriage earlier. That's the one thing I've learned. The biggest thing I've learned is because of my sexual abuse experience and I didn't deal with it and created very low self-esteem. I then walked into relationship, not just like romantic, just any kind of relationship where I let people step over me.
Mm.
Right. But with the awareness, that's all shit. Now my boundary is completely different. Now I'm a different person as the person I'm telling you right now. But because I saw my mom go through that, and that was my biggest fear to have my child go through all that. Not just like my life, and like even looking at my brother, now I see us as warriors. But at that time, I said, I'm not going to be like that. And, even right now, when I said I am not my mother, that's a really strong statement because who you are as parents, you are your role model of your kids. I
Mm-hmm.
know who I am and how I show up. I have 3 boys. they are going to find whoever they marry is going to be an influence on that, right? I walked into a marriage that I wasn't sure, it wasn't in harmony, great boyfriend, but not good husband type, right? Another thing too is because like I didn't have my dad. So there was like the absence, that abandonment issue that I had to deal with. I was so
Mhm.
scared. I was insecure. I just wanted to get married. And also that's what society said, right? So that's why understanding all of this, understanding that, we can't, at least this is what I believe. I cannot, and I am not defined by my past. The past is what made of me, that I can define and create my future. So that was that first step when I looked at my son. And I still remember this moment vividly. When I went through a divorce, I didn't have a place to stay for a whole year. So I was couch surfing with my friends, like seeing this friend for a while, that for a friend for a while in their guest room. My mom, not my mom, Caleb, my son, was like, "When are we gonna go home?" And I just broke down. I go, "You know what? Mommy just fell, but I'm gonna get back up." You know, and that was the moment I said things have to change, and I didn't know how, but things had to change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I can see how you're connecting the dots with this feeling of where did dad go? I still don't understand. Why did he leave? Watching a mother who was struggling and doing her best, but emotionally unavailable, just kind of in survival herself. And then also, um, something that really jumped out at me when you said it will rot if left inside. These feelings and questions and betrayals that if left inside would rot and likely end up with you repeating the patterns that were handed to you from your lineage.
yeah,
And yet you took a stand and said, no, 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 no. Baby girl, I love you. We got this. We get to actively create what the future looks like. And so you took hold. You chose to stay alive. You've chosen to now. Are you married again?
about to.
Okay, engaged with a child and going into a different version of it. So, okay, let's move forward a little bit.
Yeah.
If we go into the future of what you're actively creating, I'm curious, what does that future look like? Like paint the picture for all of it. What is the future Lillian look like, feel like, talk like? What is she doing? What does her relationship look like? What does her relationship with her children look like? What does her relationship with her community look like? What does her bank account look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, I love it because breaking that cycle of poverty, which is the past, my mantra is I'm a wealthy woman. I'm a successful entrepreneur. I am a leader. I
Mm,
am a mother and I am a wife and I am good to my friends. I always give back to the world, right? Everything I do creates a positive and transformative impact because I really believe my story has happened and there's so many stories out there for a purpose. And I am a firm believer my business is God's work. It's God's business. I'm just here to serve, right? And I also believe this everything I'm sharing with you, my mantras, my affirmation is now like how I embody. I'm pure positive energy. Everything I put out into the world, I manifest and I bring into physical form. And this is who I am.
mm,
So every single step, all those challenges that I went through and still coming my way only makes us stronger. And I believe as a mother and even a woman, right? A woman with the vision, right? Breaking that paradigm of, a mom should stay home, you can't do this, you can't do that, is really showing up to be who you truly are in that
mm.
story that we tell in that head.
And so once again, the theme of what we wanted to talk about today was mental health growing up in an Asian culture. So I'm curious, as you're allowing yourself to stand in your power and allow this vision of a woman, the visual that I see is on standing on top of Olympus with her wings. How is that influenced by being part of an Asian American culture, Chinese American culture? And do you get backlash? I mean, is there pressure from family to go, oh, no, 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 that's not the role that you're supposed to play.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Or what is your experience there?
You know what I see now? Frequency. We're all on different frequency and channels.
Hmm.
The minute I really decided that that's who I am, right? I started to not care about what people think. Before I cared too much. That's why when I was in depression, there was an expectation that I feel like I had to live up to. And that expectation is what I thought what other people thought of me. I was critical because that's how I grew up. I was critical of other people and I was critical of myself. That's
Hmm.
changed. So the way I look at it in my mindset is this is who I am. You could hang out with me and I could create space, or if we're not in harmony, that is okay. Right. I definitely have a group of girlfriends that we grew up with and I see them over the holidays and I love them. Are we on the same frequency? No, because every single one of us have different goals and that's okay too.
Right. Yeah,
But
it's like
now,
it's not good or bad, but like if you turn into 95.5 FM, you're just listening to a different type of music. There's no if you like hip hop and someone else is likes country, sweet. Tune into that
that's it.
frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how we met, right? And then there's more like masterminds that I'm sure we're going to come together because I know I got to find my home. To find my home, I got to find my people. To find my
Right.
people, I got to know what I want. And then it just comes easily and effortlessly,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so who is the mother that you desire to be?
A leader, a business leader. I really believe that. A leader and then someone who could take care of the house and the family and a mom that is very fun.
Mm-hmm.
um, and be by the kids through thick and thin, ups and downs. Because I really, with my kids, I have one goal, and they all know this. My whole family knows this. I am not going to be the person to micromanage them. You know, I want to shower them with love, help them figure out what they want, and then when they grow up, when their wings are flying, they're always coming from home for the holidays and coming home for dinner. So I love cooking. That's another thing. That's my whole thing because I've always remembered this. When if you have a bird, if you squeeze it too tight, it's gonna die.
Yeah.
If you let it too loose, it's gonna fly away. But when
Mm-hmm.
you fondle it, you play with it, you love on it, you let it loose, it's always gonna come home.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at myself as a mom, where they have a safe place where they could talk to me. Because I didn't have that. I didn't have a mom I could talk to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like there's also this leadership piece and financial stability piece of I'm here for you, I'm playful, I'm here to give you your nourishment and your fun, but I'm also a leader out in the world and I'm showing you that mom can do big things and I'm providing financially for the household.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And
100%.
so for years, you were a PGI consultant and kind of taking Bob Proctor's lineage and coaching others. And now it sounds like there's this kind of braiding, so to speak, of life's experiences as you're actively creating this beautiful black silken braid, braiding into your future. It's bringing back the film industry mixed with all of the personal development and all of the identity stuff and all of the affirmations and future visioning into one thing.
Yes, you're
Can you
100% right.
can you talk a little bit about what that thing is?
Yeah. Um, and I want to touch base a little bit what you said for me going to PGI and other companies and then ultimately where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
When I first started working with Bob, I was seeking mentorship. And what I also learned too is when before I become a leader, I also have to be a follower, right? As
Hmm.
I've outgrown that image, if you may, because the confidence, self-image came, and I was discovering in this road of discovering myself, who I am, what do I want to be. That's when I realized that everything is coming full circle. When I was in the film business, ultimately it's a good story. If you have a good story, and of course a team in the business side, you got to put it out there too. That's what's going to sell. And selling is helping as we know it now. Personal development, people will work on themselves if they want to. And most people, they're not aware. That's the thing,
Mm,
right? That's why there's a saying it's not for everyone, but really it's the awareness. And ultimately, what I have found myself to as a speaker, as a coach, as a mentor, myself, my clients, even yourself, everything is storytelling.
yeah.
Everything is storytelling. So for me, everything ties in one circle. It goes to, I always say this. I used to be really good at helping other people make their movie. People hire me, I make their vision. Right now, I'm really good at helping people make their own life movie. And now,
Mm,
as I'm making my movie, because before I was always that supporting role. As I mentioned when we started this podcast, I was always in this rat race looking for projects, right? But then I wasn't solid with what kind of stuff I want to be doing. But
mhm,
now I'm very clear, right? Personal development, inspirational, motivational, anything that's going to bring good to the world. Because I do believe when the story comes in, people are inspired. That's a gateway to look at their own life.
mhm,
Am I happy with where I'm at? Is there more that I want? Right. And then really examine their belief. That's ultimately what it is. Even within my story, going from the poverty thinking, the poverty feel, the feeling, the worry, the doubt, going to, okay, I'm a wealthy woman. I'm a wealthy
mhm,
mom. I am not just saying that I can do this. I am doing this and being able to face it all in my like face it every single day, right?
mm,
It's because of that belief shift. And that goes with storytelling. So when someone's working on their own life story, it's confronting those beliefs too. Because most of the time, when I looked at what I want before, now I'm living it. But when I was working on it, it felt impossible. It was like, who am I? Who's going to listen to me?
mm,
Right? It's a
yeah.
belief shift.
Uh-huh. And is there still, I mean, I know you're so passionate about educating people, not only about depression and mental health, but specifically in the context of Asian culture.
Yeah.
As you're kind of moving into highlighting people's stories and using film and using um, storytelling to bring to life the future version of them, are you wanting to really ensure that that's also including education and empowerment around Asian culture and the role of women and the way that mental health and depression play?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I feel this is for everyone, not just the Asian culture. It's, even my clients, I love saying I've covered all time zones, people around the world. I literally had clients of all color, but just being the leader and then Asian myself and with the background, a lot of Asians will associate or relate to me, right? So my way is be the product of the product, be what I teach, right? It's okay to share the mistakes I made because I've understand and I've learned the power of vulnerability. If anything, it actually makes us close. So that helps
Mhm.
me remove that ego, right? And then that's where you will start to attract. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
how
so
my way of
courageous.
impacting.
I mean, I'm just like, wow, your courage is so big. I definitely tend to struggle with really allowing myself to be seen and like letting the shadows get the spotlight. And you're just honest and vulnerable and sharing your struggles and allowing the tears to come through. It's really beautiful. It's awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um Anything that feels unsaid, or like if you look back through the conversation that we've just had so far, is there anything that feels like, ooh, that thing that we kind of touched on, I want to elaborate it on it more, or there's this piece to the journey that we've just gone on that feels like it needs to be brought to the light or needs to be talked about?
I think the biggest thing, when it comes down to mental health and depression, it truly is a story that you tell yourself in the head, right? And the one thing I want to highlight is when I lived in a victim mindset, I had a lot of resentment towards my mom,
Mm.
especially with my childhood abuse. I blamed her. I blamed because I had no one else to blame as a girl, little girl. I blamed her for not having a dad. I blamed her for not being there for me. I blamed her for taking me back to Taiwan because I had a good life in America. And so I was in a victim mindset. I can't do this. I can't do that. I wasn't born in this. I wasn't born in that. I have to work really hard. I was envious of my other friends that were wealthy. And I'm bringing that up because I realized that was a narrative and not being able to look at the light that she is also another woman that's doing the best that she can. She
Mhm.
also has a cycle that it's her responsibility to break through, not mine, you know? And seeing it from afar. And when I say that, when I'm focused on who I am and what I am with the life that I want, then what happens is I detach from that. I am now all of a sudden I'm on a different channel,
Mm.
right? It's like this. A great way for me to explain it is if you're gonna go out on the streets and then maybe there's this homeless person that's making random comments about you. You don't know this person. You know this person is crazy. This is a more dramatic example, but to help people understand. It's not even gonna touch you because you know that's not their problem, not yours. But that goes with the day-to-day life. And then to break that whole cycle and shift into who you are and what I am is to really focus in that inner voice, right? You could call it universe, you could call it God, you could call it spirituality. I became a lot more spiritual now because now I am making decisions based on that. And then that's how my whole life shifted because of my outlook in life. And I think
Mm.
that's the best way to look at it. There's society, there's culture, there's social media, there's
Mhm.
parenting. And though that setting, that environment will give us, every single one of us, a different belief that we have. But you can shift it. And it is a decision that we all have to make and hold on to that because when that happens, it's very disruptive. It's very disruptive. That's why when we started this, you said, "What did I do? What is my day to day for the past 3 to 5 years?" It's almost a internal growth, internal alignment. It's dealing with a lot of feelings, confronting the fear, removing and replacing it with faith. It's the sowing and the reaping. It's weeding out the weeds, planting in new seeds, and the weeds come out, taking out again, and then so you keep doing that. So the soil is tender. You put in new seeds, and eventually that seeds become seed fruit blossom, seed plant blossom fruit, right? And then it starts to materialize, and now the garden is there.
Mhm.
So it is work, and every single one of us are going to deal with it very differently. But things can change if you decide to, right?
Right. And I'm hearing it all goes back to the story.
It goes to the story in here,
Yeah.
the
What
belief.
story am I telling myself about this scenario? How do I choose to see it and what am I choosing to actively create?
And
And
one thing to add, uh,
yeah.
if you guys watch superhero movies, right? They all have, and before we call that character development. Every TV show or character or movie, we develop the character before that character becomes a hero. So there's a backstory. So the hero, when you look at hero movies, you'll notice they all have like a crazy story that happened in the past. And then there's that hero moment.
Hmm.
So I always say this, and this is in my vision too. Every time I'm about to do something new, I say, this is my hero moment to help
Hmm.
people know that. And that's how I tie in what you see on the big screen and how you develop in your personal life. This is my moment to shine. I'm going to do something different now. I am going to be courageous. I am that hero now in my life.
Totally. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. It makes me think a little bit of law of opposites or
Yeah.
law of contrast.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Would you speak to
The
that
law of
just a
polarity.
tad?
Yeah, well, the law of opposites, the law of polarity, there's ups and downs, in and out, hot and cold, right? Poverty and wealth, and they do not coexist. It's not this and that. It's this or that. So for people that don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want, that's already a good start because you just figure out the opposite of that. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that from experience because I remember there was one time I didn't even know how to ask for help with my network, right? Before I looked for help because I didn't even know what I want. But I had a list of things of what I don't want. You can start from there, right? And then abundance and lack cannot coexist. I think that's the most important thing people have to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Abundance and lack do not coexist. You, most of us, a lot of people, I certainly went through this, they say they want abundance, but internally in the subconscious, they're still living in lack. That is the inner work that has to be
Mm-hmm.
done, right? The
So
body is the
good.
instrument of the mind. Remember that.
Mm-hmm. And once again, if it will rot if left inside. So, yes, the body is the instrument of the mind, and we have to allow the emotion to come out, to address the fear, to get clear with dreams and visions and desires. Otherwise, they will rot inside. And that rotting inside almost led you to your demise. And I imagine there are many people out in the world that that's the direction that has been taken. And we go, okay, where's the defining moment? Where's your hero moment where you can allow it out so it's no longer rotting, and know that this can be that moment where the trajectory changes and it becomes a hero moment, and then the spectacular that's on the other side. So good. All right, for those that are listening, if someone wanted to reach out to you first, why would someone reach out to you? What is it that you want to offer up to the individuals that are listening?
Well, I would say if you're looking for a change and you need help to define where you're at and where you're heading, and have very simple principles to apply day to day, every single day, and work on. So it's working on yourself. That's where I can help you, and we can help you. We have a team, right? And that's where I could help you, and that's when reach out. It could be anything. Where if you have a question, right, where this is something that you resonate or you feel stuck, right? But I always say follow your intuition of what that is. And if it's
Mhm.
resonating, I'm here to connect with you. I'm here to love on you. Doors are open. And you can find me on my Instagram, which is Lillian Victoria Official, or you can email me at lillian@alivitality.com.
Okay, and I'll make sure those are all in the show notes. And so it sounds like it's not just an individual that's looking for support and transformation, but specifically to dig into their story and then have that story told somehow through film. Is that right?
Um, that could be another one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for this one, I would say when you want to make changes, because I'm always looking for good stories
Mhm.
to probably make them into content, like good content.
Okay.
Or I'm currently looking into different intellectual properties that's known that don't have a story yet. So I have the room to create the characters into a story that could help inspire people. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're helping individuals with change. You're helping them really get clear with the story
Mhm.
that can then be utilized out in a public facing way.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're alive,
Yeah. Thank you.
and I'm grateful for your courage and your vulnerability to share. Um, I'll be really curious if your father ever finds you or you do find your father. And if there is any void that will be filled by that, or maybe not. Maybe you're realizing that was kind of a victim mentality space and it's actually not needed. I don't know. Do you still want to find your father?
It's interesting you asked. Just last week, and I have to admit, I had some wine. My brother came and he was playing with the baby, and it was the cutest moment I've ever seen. My baby was kissing him, and and I took a video. So I actually sent that video to my aunt that I haven't seen for 30 years.
Mhm.
Say, can you help me find him? And my kids are growing up and they're asking about their grandpa. I never heard back. So to answer your question, I'm at this place right now where I just completely in the space of letting go because I've done my part.
But it
I've
is still a desire within you.
yeah, I think it'll be nice to see him. I think it'll be nice to see him in my lifetime, at least one time before it's too late, right?
Hmm.
That's kind of my approach. Yeah.
And what would too late be?
Well, I'm 40, so I think he's in his 70s right now.
Ah.
See?
Hmm.
So there's so many ways to define too late, but because I don't
Hmm.
know him, I don't know his health condition, I don't know anything. Only thing I can reference is age.
Yeah. Really, maybe you don't even know if he's still alive.
That could be one too. I thought about that. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's why I'm in this place of letting go.
And if you allow yourself to go into the future version of you that's a leader and a present mom who's spontaneous and playful and providing well and serving the world and worthy and strong, and you meet your father, um, what will that provide for you?
I visualized that moment many times already. Many times. I would give him a hug. I'm not even sure if I would forgive him because I don't know where he stands. But I would just say it's so good to see you
Hmm.
and just shower him with love because what happened in the past is the past. We can't go back. I
Hmm.
used to want to know why, but now I don't really care. I came to that conclusion. I just want to see him. I'm curious to see what he looks like, how he talks. Apparently, I look like him. And then for my kids, for him to know, also for him to know that I'm doing well, my brother's doing well. He has a bunch of grandchildren
Hmm.
and he has a family out there, right?
Hmm. And what will that provide for you?
I think healing, because family always has been very important to me because I didn't
Hmm.
have a family when I was a kid. So I remember when I was a kid, holidays, I'm always alone, where everyone's like with their family, where they all get together. I would say, when I grow up, I'm going to have my own family. When I grow up, I'm going to have a big family. And now I do.
Hmm. Hmm.
In many ways, that manifested in a way that I didn't expect, but it manifested.
Hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like really there's not so much of a void. It's just curiosity. I want to see his mannerisms. I want to see what he looks like. I want him to meet my children. I want to let him know that I love him to pass that on.
Exactly. And just keep that energy in the family.
Hmm.
And if I had not worked on myself, I think that void would be there.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
because I took the power back, I'm just I completely just let go. No expectations, let go, do my part, and live my life to the best that
Yeah.
I can. Right.
So good. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And this was a lovely conversation. For those of you listening, you're welcome to reach out to Lillian. Like I said, her contact information will be in the show notes. And if this is a conversation that you've really felt pulled by, and there's anyone that you've thought of that maybe has been struggling with depression and you think that they might need to hear it, please send it on. Please give your 5-star rating. A review is always welcome, and I appreciate the support. Reviews really do help this podcast grow and reach more individuals so that we can have stories like Lillian's story shared with more individuals out in the world. I'm grateful for you and your time. for all of us in sharing this time together because we live such productive lives. We have choices with our time. And so I honor that we've shared this time, this frequency, this vibration together in this last however much time it's been. With that, thank you, Lillian. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.